My love for sports came through basketball. As kids, before we would go and hoop on a little 6 foot rim, we would yell out the name of the players that we were for that game. It's around 1991, so if there were five of us, the five names you would normally hear would be MJ, Magic, Isaiah, Clyde the Glide, Charles Barkley, right? I was always younger, so to try and avoid a fight with one of the bigger kids, I would let them choose first, and then I would yell out, "I'm KJ," for Phoenix Suns point guard Kevin Johnson. This is years before I would gravitate towards and model my game after Gary Payton, who I always loved because as a defender, when he would get switched on to a bigger player, he'd always call away to help, like, "No, stay over there. I don't even need it." Just take him on one, and he won a lot of those matchups. I grew up like many watching Ahmad Rashad host NBA Inside Stuff. Loved the jam sessions. I eagerly anticipated the day I'd be able to, squeeze my pumps and fly through the air like D Brown. My first points in the league were going to be a 360 tomahawk dunk. The crowd was going to go wild. It never happened. No NBA, no 360, no tomahawk, no dunk. Because I never could. As my love for sports grew, I would regularly watch ESPN SportsCenter, listen to Stuart Scott do the highlights. This is back when SportsCenter would rerun all night. I would watch as many as I could stay up for. As I got older, I matured into Bryant Gumbel's content on Real Sports, although I wasn't able to watch that often because we no longer had HBO at home, being that Prime Cable turned into Cox, and the chip in our box no longer worked. I enjoyed what all three of these brothers brought to the table long before I understood the significance of any of them. Today, I believe Shannon Sharpe is the most talented person in sports media. I say that being fully aware and respectful of the absolute monsters that exist in that realm. Mike Greenberg, Mike Wilbon, Tony Romo, Maria Taylor, Troy Aikman and his partner Joe Buck, Skip Bayless, Kenny Smith and Charles Barkley, Mama There Goes That Man Mark Jackson, Doris Burke, Chris Berman, just to name a few. With Undisputed being as great as it was and Club Shay Shay evolving into what it has become, I don't think this is the outcome that Fox Sports wanted, especially when they were this close to being able to dethrone the leader of the Monstars, Stephen A. Smith. The only problem I've ever had with Stephen A. Smith was his handling of the Kwame Brown situation. For him to make a low-light reel of the worst plays in Kwame's career in order to substantiate his argument of labeling Kwame a bust was one of the greatest examples and worst displays that I've ever seen of a black man tearing down another black man. I would have respected if Stephen A. invited Kwame onto one of his platforms to discuss it like men, even if an agreement couldn't be made and an apology didn't ensue. I would have respected if Stephen A. didn't respond at all. But when you're the leading voice in all of sports television and you use your platform to double down on your stance of insulting a black man, even after hearing how it affected his contract negotiations, I damn near lost all respect for him in an instant. It's been so long since I've tuned into Stephen A. that I didn't realize Max Kellerman hadn't been on First Take in nearly 2 years. I didn't know that until I read the news of his firing today. The only time that I've tuned in to watch Stephen A. live was alongside Jalen Rose on NBA Countdown. I like Jalen Rose. I liked him as a player when he played in Indiana, coming off the bench for Chris Mullin, and then later starting alongside Reggie. There were many nights that he gave the Pacers the boost they needed in order to get past a tough Eastern Conference foe. I never liked the trade to the Bulls because that was a rebuilding team, and I didn't feel like Jalen was a strong enough player to build a team around him. I felt like that move began a downward spiral for his career. Like, he should have never even been on the Raptors team for Kobe to go off for 81 against, right? Like, he should have been helping out a contender at that time. From being a member of the Fab Five, where he helped change college ball and culture, to being drafted to the Nuggets, where he couldn't quite carve out a role for himself as a young player, to helping the Pacers reach the NBA Finals, to being a veteran on a number of teams in rebuild mode, very few have the experience to speak from as many vantage points as Jalen Rose. We're talking about one of the few guys who can fairly judge Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron, as he was on the court having to try and defend all three. This is why he's such a great NBA analyst, when he's allowed to talk. When his opinion isn't being cut short or drowned out by a bigger personality, a novice could really learn something that would hold up in the next morning's sports convos at work. So that leads to the question, why would ESPN lay off Jalen Rose? In a rare moment for myself, I'll answer a question with a question. Who cares? I'm just glad it happened. The new wave in sports isn't morning debate shows. That was 13 years ago. Today is podcasts led by current and former players in their respective sports. From All the Smoke to The Shop, to the Pivot Podcast, to Podcast P, I Am Athlete or KG Certified, No Chill Gill, The Draymond Green Show, or dare I say, Kwame's Bus Life. These athletes have millions of eyes and ears on lock as they tell personal stories, react to current news, and bring on guests that we didn't even know we needed to hear. While some of these shows have ties to big networks, most are completely controlled by the players themselves. And we're seeing players be able to speak how they want about what they want, with Marcellus Wiley being a perfect example. And it's refreshing to see this kind of freedom. Because the most embarrassing thing that I've ever seen on screen didn't come from a blooper reel on America's Funniest Home Videos or ridiculousness or Shaqtin' a Fool. It didn't come from a criminal being caught for an act of stupidity or a politician trying to explain his way out of a scandal. It didn't come when Unc put his glasses back on after Skip insisted he did so during a heated debate. It came when a man spoke truthfully about how he felt, all facts at that, and a commercial break was interrupted so that man could get back on screen and apologize and alter his opinion for the viewers at home. That man was publicly humiliated by that company. We should rejoice in the fact that he's gone. I hear some calls to boycott ESPN, and honestly, people are justified in feeling that way. After all, this is a company that has proven itself to force apologies for every situation except for when a black man is insulted. But don't waste your breath. We're not boycotting Monday Night Football, college football, or its playoffs, or the NBA Finals. ESPN, ABC, and Disney would all have to be a part of your boycott in order for it to be effective, and we all know that is not going to happen. There's someone writing a post about boycotting right now, sitting at B-dubs in front of 10 ESPN screens with 10 hots, 5 Jamaican jerk, 5 mango habanero, a draft beer, and they can't even talk because, they got 4 fingers worth of fries stuffed down their mouth right now, all while they type. Instead of spending energy on trying to take down a giant we can't reach, let's spend it on building a giant of our own. Let's be ready to flood those we love to watch with more support than they can handle. Let's make it clear where our interest lies. Let's tell ESPN, Fox, or any other network that they don't get to tell us who the next it person is. We'll decide that for ourselves. So to Jalen and Shannon, I don't know what's next for either of you brothers, but just know you already have a subscriber in me.